like the vision. Make it plain.
This is
Make it plain.
They
M.I.P.
With Masamela Matsumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Top of the hour. This is your wake-up call. Be more purposeful about how you use your money. Build black, buy black, and bank black to build wealth in the black community. Black people spend $1.2 trillion a year, but those dollars don't circulate in the community. There needs to be a sense of urgency to improve the economy. The bank black, and buy the block movements are so important, including purchasing and holding on to real estate in the community. Pay attention to where and how you spend, and remember to save and invest your money by moving your money to One United Bank, the largest black-owned and first black internet bank in America. FDIC member, you join the Bank Black movement using your Mona, Amir, or Lady Liberty Visa debit cards with their powerful, proud images celebrating blackness. Shows the world that black money matters. Just go to oneunited.com. That's oneunited.com. Open an account and get your Visa debit card so you can bank black, buy black, and build black today. We had Reverend Jackson on in the last hour to talk about meeting with BMW today, as he has called for a boycott of BMW. The NAACP, as you well know, it was announced here first on this show that they have issued a travel advisory against American Airlines, which is very, very serious, y'all. American Airlines isn't that kind to us. And as that ad I just read said, we're consumers. Where and how do we spend our money? And I know a lot of you listening to the show aren't even black. But why would you even want to spend your money with a place that mistreats your fellow human beings who are black folk? Why would you want to spend your money with an entity that does that? So that's what we need to keep in mind. Speaking of American Airlines, on yesterday, the NAACP and Tamika Mallory, who was removed from a plane wrongfully a couple of weeks ago. This is what prompted the travel advisory, and since then the floodgates have opened with other stories of American Airlines customers of color who have been treated that way. Tamika met with the CEO of American Airlines on yesterday. She's here to tell us all about it early this morning. Tamika, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mark Thompson. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. How well, first of all, congratulations on the Women's Convention. It was incredible. We just hung up with Emily Kane of Emily's List. I was saying how practical a convention it was to me. You know, you and I go to conventions and stuff all the time. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of them can be just very social, which is okay. Folks socialize, have a good time, see each other, rub elbows. But y'all put some work in. I mean, these were serious. I mean, these were some of the most in-depth, comprehensive workshops I've seen, training and teaching women how to organize locally on the grassroots level, how to get prepared for electoral politics. So much healing, so many cathartic sessions. We told the audience about the Confronting White Womanhood session that I attended, and among others, some of the other healing sessions that went down. And then, of course, we were on Monday when I was fresh back, and I told everybody how you twisted my arm to appear and to say a few words, and then it got a little bit out of control, and I'm sorry for that. But because I didn't want to do it.
It wasn't out of control. It was right on spot. Spot on.
But I didn't want to do it. And
act like you didn't want to do it when you started talking. So,
but if you notice, I started out really subdued, and then it wasn't me. The women picked me up and picked up the whole thing. So it was truly the spirit of the room. It was like being in church.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the conference, the Women's Convention, it was truly incredible. I am more than proud of the work that we put in to make this convention really model who we say we are as organizers. I mean, the intersectional platform that was provided at this convention was like none that I've ever seen. And you ask the 5,000 people who attended at various times. We were at 5,000 at our height. They will tell you what they experienced. I probably saw maybe 2 people say that, they really didn't get much from the conference, but, you're never going to win them all. But I believe that the majority, so that would be 4,000 and 998 people, said that they really appreciated the intention that we put forth to plan the conference. Our opening session, which you missed, Mark, was really incredible, with all of the women packing into one space, and we got ready to go through a weekend of, impact. There was also art in the space, where we had an entire floor that was dedicated to the art of indigenous people and people of color and feminists, and really just expressing, the movement. And then we had Social Justice City, where small businesses were able to showcase their products, and organizations were able to showcase their work. And the space, I was also very proud to see so many women of color show up. That's a process that we are really working hard towards. We gave out over 800 scholarships to people, many young African American and other women of color were there, and it really was an incredible time. And to your point about the Confronting White Womanhood session that Sophie, one of the young ladies who worked with us, she actually put that session on. A white young lady put on this session, and the next day they were the people who couldn't get into the session because it was like in a 150 seat space. The next day they had to do it again because of popular demand, and there were over 800 people that showed up, largely white women. So I think we did a good job. Obviously we want to do even better in terms of ensuring that the LGBTQIA community has even more platforms in the future. Also, more Latina women need to be in this space. So we know what the takeaways are, and we're going to work really hard to make sure that happens.
As a matter of fact, I think we're getting Sophie on the show in a day or two, because we talked there, and we want to do some follow-up on that. I was joking with Tamika yesterday, Brittany, because there was people so frustrated at the airport with the travel delays, and so one lady was doing white womanhood privilege on everybody in the line at the airport and just snapping at people. And I said, we need a Confront a White Womanhood app, so we can show folk how they act. But
that's such a good idea.
Yeah, Brittany thinks it's a good idea. But it was really a cathartic experience, and as I said,
I missed Brittany there. I really missed you, Brittany.
I'm so sad I couldn't be there.
Yeah, I missed you there. So next time.
Absolutely, sure. I will not miss it. Mark my words.
But folks, and I mean this too. I don't know the last time I went to an event of this size that was so meaningful. Everybody left with something specific to do. Again, we all go to conventions and conferences and with all of our organizations that we're in. And how often do they just become routine? And we just hanging out. Hey, good to see so-and-so. And it feels good. And we make, and reminisce and reunionize. That's not a word. But this piece, folk came to do some work. And they did it. And Tamika and them delivered. So we're thankful for that. Now, just to kind of segue this together, the first night of the convention, American Airlines mistreated another woman of color, right? Tell us that story, if you would, Tamika.
Yeah, so one of the young women who we work with, V, I'm just going to call her V because I don't want to get her name incorrect on the show. She is a disabled woman who needs her wheelchair. She's, unable to move without it, and it is a special wheelchair that is for her disability. And she was flying through a connection to Detroit, and her wheelchair was lost, and she ended up having to stay overnight in a different city and not being able to get to us. They did find it, and they actually left it on the jet bridge, which means that someone did not, take the time to notice that this was not one of their regular wheelchairs. But they did get it to her the next day. However, she was inconvenienced. She missed the session that she was going to do with us, and just missed the opportunity to be there for 2 days the way in which she wanted to, and had to find friends to stay with. We made sure to uplift her. She wrote on social media that, she was beside herself in terms of just being so upset about her wheelchair going missing. And, what was interesting is the disability committee or community within Women's March asked me to go to a meeting with her to talk about what happened. But they wanted to explain to me that her situation is just one of many, that the disability community has a very difficult time when dealing with the airlines and how their wheelchair. She said, I was happy that they actually found it and brought it back in its full capacity, because most of the time wheelchairs are broken, lost forever. And they talked about all the challenges that the disability community has when flying. And what I have found is, while I have a very special interest in what is happening specifically with Black women, and zeroing in on Black women and these pilots, which is something that we'll be talking more about, Mark, because I'm really sort of considering some very specific work around that's outside of American Airlines. Mm-hmm. There are other communities coming forward to say, I know that there's a Black women issue, but let's also focus on what happens to women of all colors with children, the disability community, and other communities that have also Muslim communities that are dealing with some serious issues while flying. And so we certainly will be following up on all of that because we want to make sure that all people are treated in the same way, with dignity and respect, while spending your money, because no one's giving us free tickets. We have to actually pay, and sometimes pay a very hefty cost to fly across the country. And, we want to make sure that we're treated with respect.
No question about it. Tamika Mallory with us, folks. Tamika, co-chair of the Women's March and Women's Convention. Tamika, tell us about the meeting with American Airlines on yesterday, if you would, please.
Yeah, so, the folks who attended the meeting on the civil rights side were Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP, and also his general counsel, brother Brad, also Melanie Campbell, the president of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, and also convener of the Black Women's Roundtable, which I'm a proud member of. Also a civil rights attorney who represents me in this case, and also I've worked with him for years on other cases like the Ramarley Graham case in the Bronx where he was killed by police, Royce Russell, also my son Lennon, who who's been on with us several times, and he is also my colleague at Justice League NYC, a hip-hop artist. He attended the meeting. And Color of Change, while they were not able at the last minute to be in the room because the meeting changed quickly for us to do it as soon as possible before the holidays. However, they are a part of the team, Rashad Robinson. And so also on the American Airlines side, it was the CEO, Doug Parker, as well as one of his senior vice presidents of customer experience.
So how did it go? Are you at liberty to share what was discussed?
No, I think that the meeting, actually was productive in terms of us being able to share information. We actually went to the meeting with some very good research and recommendations. Thankfully, we did not have to reinvent the wheel. The information was already prepared by the Legal Defense Fund. And their findings and reporting and recommendations is based upon the Department of Transportation's report that they put out, in which they cite American Airlines as being the one airline that has the worst complaint status in terms of racial discrimination.
Wow.
So they have the highest level of complaints coming in around racial discrimination. And that was the Department of Transportation's words, not civil rights, not Tamika Mallory, not P. Diddy Combs. It was there was a Department of Transportation. So they're actually getting the reports and vetting them. And the Legal Defense Fund has an entire platform, if you will, in terms of recommendations where they are calling specifically for implicit bias training of not just American Airlines, but all of the airlines. They've sent several correspondences out, and we took those recommendations to them and asked them to, if they had not seen them, look at it. If you have seen them, put a fresh set of eyes on them in light of all of what we have seen, and put them into practice. And we gave them directly to the CEO, in which he looked at them and, didn't have obviously an opportunity to agree or not agree in the meeting, but said that he would be following up on those recommendations. And I think that is a good step. However, what we know is that one conversation has never made any change in any place. I mean, it's a good place to start, but when you're working with hundreds of thousands of employees, it has to be able to get through the bureaucracy of the organization and really get implemented on the ground. And so while I think Doug Parker was very sincere about wanting to make some very specific changes and really sort of upgrade the systems and their training process, at the same time, again, until it is actually implemented, it will not stop one person from being thrown off the plane. That may have been happening while we were in the meeting, may happen today, and certainly over time we know that people will still be in that situation, and particularly, again, women of color who have a very specific and interesting relationship with pilots and flight attendants, and that's something, as I said, we're going to be working on. And one thing I do want to mention is that he definitely apologized to my son and me about what happened to us. He looked us directly in the eye and said that he apologized. I think those, again, are important steps, but until we actually see implementation, we are unable. The NAACP has said that they will keep the travel a travel advisory live until a few more conversations happen. And certainly for me, we will ensure that until there is actual, again, implementation, and they also need to deal with Reverend Barber and some of the other very specific cases and complaints that have come out of this, we will continue to keep the pressure on.
So, and I think in the statement that was released yesterday, there will be follow-up meetings, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way that we will be able to, use one meeting and feel that has made any significant difference. And so in follow-up days, coming days and coming months and coming, probably years, we intend to stay at the table so long as we see progress happening. Very important that people do not walk away from this thinking, okay, they met and he apologized and it's all good. No, our dollars matter, and it is the only way when we monitor our dollars and our spending, and we are careful where we put it, and we ensure that we see changes before we begin to give people our money. When we do that, people listen, and the changes that we have all said that we want to see will become a reality even quicker, and even be more specific based upon us, people who control $1.3 trillion a year in spending. If we monitor that and that we have a significant impact on American Airlines' bottom line, I believe that they will be forced to become a leader in the industry in terms of industry-wide standards that will be put forth to protect us while you're flying while black.
Agreed. Was there, Tamika, any conversation about the pilot who mistreated you and whether they disciplined him at all?
So that part I'm not able to really speak to today. Again, the CEO apologized. He did not at all say that he was admitting or agreeing to our claim of discrimination specifically with this particular pilot. I think he understands that there's an overall issue, but he did not. And there is work to be done in that area in terms of how we go forward. So I won't speak to that particular thing, but I will say again that I think that there is some very specific work to be done on pilot and how they have this sort of arbitrary decision-making power that is wrapped up in a security piece that we agree with. We believe that the captain needs to have the power to make a decision on behalf of the safety of all those who are on his plane. But when you understand that the industry is overwhelmingly white men, white and male,
right,
and we know the history and the current day story of how giving white men arbitrary power can be very dangerous. There has to be some work done there, because when you're putting women of color who have historically been mistreated by white men, unfortunately, we have to just call it what it is. It is very dangerous to give them agency over our bodies that is unchecked. And at this point, I am not clear. I learned a little, but I'm not clear in totality of how the accountability mechanisms are in place, because with power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And if it is not being checked, and it's sort of wrapped up in this whole idea of unions and collective bargaining agreements and all of that, we have to unpack that, because the trauma that is being caused is one that is very dangerous. And I suggest that white men, because I know what I will hear from women, white women particularly, is, and of course white men, my social media will blow up today with people saying that we're painting all white men with one brush, and it's not fair. And I agree with that we don't want to paint. We believe, I've had many pilots who are amazing, work with young people and done great things. I've been traveling for a very long time and have not had, many incidents. But I do know that there are too many stories that we're hearing from other black women and other women of color, which the pilot is stepping in and being extremely aggressive. And so what I suggest is that other white pilots who know that either some of these things are happening or may not know but want to be more involved, to come forward and say, let's sit at the table and work together and talk through how we get to a place where people, even if it's a misunderstanding, are not walking away being and feeling discriminated against.
I would suggest, as I've heard from others, after the travel advisory, there are those who already had flights booked on American Airlines, 27 minutes past the hour. What I've suggested to people, I mean, it sounds funny, but it's not really, is if you are a person of color, particularly an African American, and you've already have a previously booked flight on American Airlines, when you get on the plane, wear either a Women's March shirt or sweatshirt or an NAACP shirt or sweatshirt, and I'm sure that will decrease your chances of being messed with. Okay? So I strongly say, if you're already booked on American Airlines and you've not acted on the travel advisory, it's not a boycott, it's an advisory, so you have to make your own decision. But I would suggest you wear something indicating that you're in solidarity with one of these major organizations, civil rights and resistance organizations, so that the pilots, stewards, everybody else knows, okay, we don't want to bother this person. Now, it's a shame that people would have to do that because they treat people differently based upon who they are, who they think. They didn't know who Tamika was, okay? If they knew who Tamika was, this wouldn't have happened. But the dozens and thousands of people who are not leadership, this happens to every day, and we know what the consequences are. Tamika Mallory with us. Real quick, let's get a quick call in for Tamika, and we got to run. Delilah's in Florida. Delilah, God bless you. Good morning. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. You're on with Tamika Mallory. Go right ahead, please.
Good morning, Mark, and thank you. So, the professionalism goes by the fact that when you go to work, you handle yourself in such a manner which treats people with, no matter who they are,
right,
color or status, with the most respect and decency, okay? Now, we all deal with the public from time to time, I myself as well. We have thoughts in our minds. We have our own prejudices. But that pilot acted so unprofessionally. You don't bring your personal feelings and emotions. You stay objective, and you handle yourself as such.
I agree. Right. And that was the case. And that was the case with the pilot. I mean, and Tamika can't comment it on. I would just say, this is me talking, not Tamika. And I said this to Tamika when it happened. See, if I had been on that plane, they would have had a whole nother problem, because I would have organized the other passengers. Now, DJ Nina 9 across the hall on Hip Hop Nation was on the plane. She said to me that the pilot not only asked people, he made an announcement after Tamika was removed. Tamika and my son were removed. The pilot made an announcement, but first he asked everybody not to record it. And unfortunately, DJ Nina 9 chose to be obedient at that moment. She said others may have filmed it or recorded it, but he said, please don't record this. And he apologized to the passengers over his announcement for the dust up. He didn't take personal responsibility. But then, as every passenger got off the plane, he apologized to them. See, my question would have been, if I was just a spectator or a bystander, and again, this is me talking, not Tamika, I would have said out loud, everybody, whoa, 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 is this dude in the proper frame of mind to fly this plane? Is he too upset? Is something wrong with him? And then it would have been a whole nother problem on American Airlines that I would have done that. And that plane probably would not have taken off. Because you plant that seed, other folks going to probably say, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's a good question because dude is flipping up in here. So you're right. I don't know whether that'll come up in his review or whether, we don't know what his situation is. Hopefully, American Airlines will take that seriously and look at, where he is and what his state of mind is and whether or not it's even safe for him to fly. Tamika's been very kind and patient. Nobody's announced the pilot's name. Nobody's put his picture out there. I think a whole lot of folk. And that shows how professional and magnanimous everybody else is. Shoot, another passenger could have done that. People put their phones out and film stuff all the time. So people know what happened. They know his name. They know what it looks like. Nothing's come out yet. So American Airlines better hurry up and get themselves together. Delilah, thank you for your call. We're going to go. But again, Tamika's going to be meeting more with American Airlines. We'll keep everybody posted. Again, if you have reservations you can't change, wear a Women's March, and that gives you an opportunity to support these organizations. Go online, buy a Women's March hoodie. Go online, buy an NAACP hoodie. It's getting cold. And wear that on American Airlines plane if you have to fly. Tamika, again, thank you. I was moved beyond words and honored that you asked me to make remarks on Saturday at the Women's Convention. And then as I said to Jennifer, I didn't. The crowd just took it. I didn't even get to talk about you and American Airlines. But what I also didn't get to talk about is the spirit that was in that room. And as a liberation theologian, God is not male to me. There is the concept of the sacred feminine and women realizing what is the God force within them. That sacred femininity, that God force, that goddess spirit was in that room on Saturday, and I was not in control. And then it clearly manifested itself when I was finished and Auntie Maxine got up there. So it was throughout that convention, again, one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. And as I said on the stage, it reminded me of the spirit that was on the mall at the Million Man March. So congratulations to you, Carmen, Linda, Bob, all the organizers. There's just 4 of y'all. There were dozens. Tamika tried to name everybody by name. I saw you. Bless your heart. And they are on the cover of Glamour magazine.
Yeah, we are cover girls. It is and on the inside, there are many of our organizers are inside the book on the pages.
Yeah, sure are.
There's a whole spread around, all the women who worked on the march, and the 4 of us receive a lot of recognition. And we know that, we're honored and it's a privilege that we've been on covers and, have received sort of the Time 100 award and Forbes, 50 most influential people in the world. I mean, we've received a lot of recognition for this historic day, but we are clear that we did not make it happen on our own. There were people who worked harder than us day and night to ensure that the Women's March happened, the Women's March on Washington, and people who continue to work every day in this conference. Also, you say I tried to name everyone specifically, team leads, people who invested over and above, Miriam Arahi and Akib Yaqub, particularly, and then so many others, and Sophie, as we mentioned, and then our local host committee in Detroit. Those people who came together, they were skeptical about us showing up 2.5 months or so before this major convention and saying we can do this. They were skeptical about the intersectionality piece. They were skeptical about it being an all-white women's space where they did not feel safe. And I think that we all realized we created something beautiful. And once again, we've done something that has never been done before, a historic moment where women came together. And we're going to continue to create these moments where we actually change this world for the better. Sojourner Truth said that it was turned upside down, and that we have an opportunity as women to turn it right side up. I think that that's what we're working on.
And lastly, just point of personal privilege, those of you who got a chance to see my remarks, I talked about my grandmother and my mother. My mother majored in fashion design at Howard University, and I came along and kind of dashed her dreams of going to New York and Paris and designing clothes. But my mother and my grandmother was a fashion plate, of course, but the two of them never missed an issue of W magazine. And to see that W's photographer took pictures of me and posted them on W's website, a women's magazine, you know, I know they would have never imagined, and I know they're looking down on me, they would never have imagined their dreadlocked, bearded baby boy in a magazine that they cherish. So it was.
You know, it's so funny you say that, Mark, because my mom wanted to know what happened. You know, she's always worried about me traveling and going in these spaces. And she said to me last night that her baby that she raised in the projects in Harlem, you know, where we had to step over urine and broken elevators, walking up 12 flights of steps, went in and sat down and received an apology directly from the CEO of a major corporation, and is doing work on behalf of other people. We spent more time in that meeting talking about other victims, silent victims, my son and Breonna Williams, the Harvard law student who slept in the airport with her 4-month-old baby, and Aventa Gray and Joe Taker and Simone Sanders, than we did talking about my specific situation. Because that's the type of person that I am, one, but it's also the work that I'm committed to. I believe God put me in that place for a reason, and my mom was just so, you know, full last night with this idea that she raised a daughter through some difficult circumstances, but a stand-up individual. And I think, you know, we're doing a good job, Mark. It may not be the best job, but we're doing the one that God has placed on our heart.
And he didn't bring us this far to leave us either. Give your mom my love, your parents. Tamika Mallory, folks, at Tamika D. Mallory on Twitter. This video is up for you all to share on our Twitter, Make It Plain, and Facebook, Make It Plain, YouTube, Make It Plain. Love you, Tamika. We'll talk a little later, okay?
All right, now take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we'll get ready to take a break. Sirius XM Progress, Resistance Radio. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. This is MIP.
Get ready for impeachment.